Yo, 20x your money with me. I'm going to be turning 250 into 5K with 5 player props. So 5 NFL player props to 20x my money. And again, I say this all the time, but when you're playing on Underdog Fantasy, Prize Picks, even though there's no odds on the website, that's not because you can't compare the lines on Prize Picks and Underdog Fantasy to those on sportsbooks. It just takes a little bit of math. And we've gone through in tons of other videos that on Underdog Fantasy, the implied price for 3-pick and 5-pick entries is best because you're getting minus 122 implied juice. So essentially, when we're playing on Underdog Fantasy and you're looking for profitable plays, you should assume that you're betting at minus 122 juice if you're playing a 3-pick or a 5-pick entry. And if you have questions about this, you can comment them below, but we have tons of strategy videos kind of breaking down exactly how Prize Picks works, how Underdog Fantasy works. And essentially, these platforms, they only offer parlays, so you just need to back out the implied odds. And we know for a 3-pick or a 5-pick entry that we're getting the implied price of minus 122 on Underdog. So we just need to find either 3 or 5 picks that we like at minus 122 odds, right? So you can see kind of right here, as an example, if we go back to Underdog Fantasy, here, if we had a 2-pick entry with A.J. Brown and Cade Otton under 2.5 receptions for Otton, and then A.J. Brown under 5.5, we would be betting $10 to win 30. So that's plus 200 odds. You're betting 10 to win 20 in profit, 10 to win 20 in profit plus your $10 stake back makes a $30 payout. So that's just plus 200 odds, right? Where the implied juice is minus 137. Now on DraftKings, where there's actually odds on this platform, you'll notice that you'd only be getting plus 170. You'd be betting 10 to win 27. Whereas on Underdog Fantasy, you're betting 10 to win 30. So kind of like everything, the purpose of OddsJam is to help you find value, right? All of these sports books have different odds. All of these, fantasy companies like Prize Picks and Underdog have tons of different betting lines. So what OddsJam does is it just pulls in all this data, the tens of thousands of odds on Underdog, on Prize Picks, and then it just shows you where the value is. So we can see, the second highest profit margin bet on my OddsJam is Cade Otton under 2.5 receptions, right? And the reason we like this is you'll notice every sportsbook, they have the under heavily juiced, minus 133 to minus 167 on Bet Online, which is a very sharp offshore sportsbook. So kind of looking across the market, Pinnacle, sharpest bookmaker in the world, the most efficient betting market, they have this minus 145, DraftKings minus 155, all the big US sports books are kind of minus 150 to minus 155. So it definitely seems like there's an edge, like there's value being able to get minus 122 on Cade under 2.5 receptions. Same thing for A.J. Brown, right? We're getting minus 122. Every sports book in the market is minus 140 to minus 156. Clearly, we're picking up great value at minus 122. So awesome. Now we have the first 2 picks we like, but I still need 3 more or 1 more because I'm trying to form a 3-pick or a 5-pick entry, right? Because that, again, is when you're getting the best implied odds on Underdog. You never want to play 2 picks for the most part. The only reason I'm playing 2 picks is if there's a promo or if I fat finger typically. Sometimes a line will move on me and then I'll accidentally place a 2-pick, but for the most part, you're going to notice I'm always placing 3 or 5-pick entries if you follow with the YouTube. So the easiest strategy, if you're new and you just want to make money off these platforms, is you just go to the positive EV tool, right? You just, go to the tool that literally takes all of the lines from Underdog and compares those lines to the sports books and literally points out the highest profit margin plays first, and then just take the top 3 bets, the plays in bold with a circle around them, parlay those together, and that's your play on Underdog Fantasy. Your plays will all have an edge at minus 122 juice, right? Just like this play. Incredible value on Otton under 2.5 receptions. at minus 122 odds. So how you think as a sharp profitable sports bettor is, well, given that this bet is incredible at minus 122, this is great to include. This is a profitable play to include in my underdog fantasy entry, right? And it's the highest profit margin bet. So of course we want to go with this play first. Then A.J. Brown, right? And then you could keep scrolling and hey, CMC over 4.5 receptions. We can get minus 122 on underdog, Pinnacle, every sports book pricing this minus 130 to minus 154. Seems like pretty good value at minus 122. So lower profit margin than the play on Cade Otton. But hey, if you just wanted to use the EV tool, that's 3 picks, right? Just 3 picks, bet in bold with a circle around it on underdog. And that's what we'd go with, right? Anyways, I'm 2 picks down. I didn't take this McCaffrey play. I'll show you my next 3 plays, which I think are even better. But another strategy, if you have more time, so the EV tool is really cool because it literally just points out the value and tells you your exact profit margin. But this tool only works when all the sports books and underdog fantasy, they have the line set at the same level, right? So like here, Cade Otton under 2.5 receptions is a great deal considering we can see every sports book is pricing this exact same bet, the same asset, whatever you want to call it, from minus 133 to minus 167. But you can imagine if we could get Cade Otton under 4.5 receptions on underdog fantasy, that would be even better than under 2.5. But it wouldn't show up on the EV tool because, again, what the EV tool does is it compares all the under 2.5s for a player. OddsJam is processing millions of odds, and the EV tool is just comparing all the lines, all the bets that are exactly the same in the market, such as Otton under 2.5 receptions, in pointing out if there's a big discrepancy, if there's value, right? But it won't compare Cade Otton under 2.5 receptions with Cade Otton under 4.5 receptions. So what you have to do when lines are set at different levels, maybe LeBron's point total is 26.5 on FanDuel, it's 29.5 on DraftKings. Like that data is important to see. It's, but you're not going to see it on the EV tool. So where you see that is on the screen, right? So the way I use this screen is I quickly scan the market and I just hunt for discrepancies. Typically, I'm looking for discrepancies between Prize Picks and Underdog because literally they're direct competitors and they work in the exact same way. So typically when they have a big discrepancy, there's a profitable bet. So what you're going to notice here is Dawson Knox receptions line is 2.5 on Prize Picks. Underdog has it at 3. All the sports books have it at 2.5, slightly juiced towards the over. So what I took is the under on Underdog Fantasy, And it may seem like, half a reception, what's the big deal? But you have to remember, 2.5 to 3 is massive, right? That's like a 20% increase. Like that is a big jump. In terms of his distribution, Dawson Knox is ending almost every game with 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 receptions, right? It's not like he's going to have 10 in a game. The probability he has 3 receptions is very high. So the fact that we're pushing on underdog fantasy when we take the under 3, and everyone who bets on the sports books or Prize Picks would lose if he had 3 receptions, that extra half a reception of value where we're pushing and not losing is very impactful in the long run as a sharp bettor, right? You always need to be hunting for value. So I found this play. Now here's another play that's very weird, and I'll tell you why it's weird, is the sports books are very out of whack as well. So here you'll see Zonovan Knight, his line on Prize Picks and Underdog is over under 3. Then a bunch of sports books have his line heavily juiced towards the under 3.5. But then FanDuel is heavily juiced towards the under 2.5. And then here you can see Betway and Caesars are almost a full reception off. So what you'd want to do is you'd want to bet the over on Betway, the under on Caesars, or the book that's offering the best price on under 3.5 receptions. These books are clearly out of whack. They're a full reception off. So long story short, what I ended up doing is I took the under on Underdog Fantasy and then I took the over on FanDuel. So I middled it, right? So this is called a middle, because if Zonovan Knight has exactly 3 receptions, I'll win my over on FanDuel. And on Underdog Fantasy, I'll push because he has 3 receptions. So similar to Dawson Knox, we're finding value, right? Now, finally, the play I went with is Quez Watkins over 2 receptions. As you'll notice, all the sportsbooks have his line at over under 2.5. Pinnacle isn't even giving you the over 2.5 at plus money. They're minus 101. So we're using all this data, real-time market information, right? Sportsbooks invest millions of dollars, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars into their capabilities of setting lines. The easiest way to make money off these platforms is just be like, okay, each sportsbook, Underdog Fantasy, Prize Picks, they're all going to set tens of thousands of lines, and they're going to try to do it independently. So what I'm going to do is look for those few rare betting opportunities where they're screwing up big time, and I can find an edge, right? And here we can get Quez Watkins over 2. So we're going to push if he has exactly 2 receptions. Everyone who bets on the sportsbook is going to lose. So you may be like, oh, you actually previously bet on Quez Watkins, and what I'll tell you is you're right. I took him under 2.5. But now you're going to notice Underdog moved him down to 2 because the under 2.5 looked like a great play. But now what I'm going to take him is over 2, and now I'm essentially middling on the same platform. So I have Quez Watkins over 2, but then here I have him under 2.5. So I'm middling Watkins in the same way that I'm middling Zonovan Knight, except here I'm middling between a sportsbook and Underdog, whereas here I'm just middling Underdog Fantasy. So my goal here is Watkins has exactly 2 receptions. This will push. This will win, right? So long story short, 5 picks to win $5,000. I really like them all. Let's make money.